Who got up this morning and said to themselves, I want to shift my mind. My biggest dream in the world is to mind shift. Okay, a few of you. Well, what I'm trying to figure out is why is this event sold out? I mean, I don't think most of us want to shift our minds. We want to maybe shift our lives and shift the outcomes. So for me, about 5 years ago, I was nearly broke, weighed about 300 pounds, and more than anything, I wasn't living my dream. I wasn't doing what I was here to do. Fortunately, I had two very good friends, Larry and Harry, that were going to help me on this path, and they were diametrically opposed. Larry believed in hard work. He said, you know, the secret, it's bupkis, forget about it. You want things to happen, you gotta work. And he challenged me. He said, I want you to sit on the toilet, crumple up some toilet paper, don't worry, this will be G-rated, scrunch up your face and try to feel sexy. Tough task. Then he said, go out to the beach, put your feet in the sand, take a deep breath, look up at the sun, and try to be depressed. Can't do it. You have to act. Well, I was pretty impressed by that. Well, then Harry came back to me and said, well, if the mind doesn't matter, if it's all about action and working, people worked really hard for a lot of years to run the mile in under 4 minutes, but nobody could do it until 1954 when Roger Bannister ran the mile in under 4 minutes. Then what happened? Well, did people magically just start running harder or training more? No. But because this collective mind shift and belief, in the next 2 years, 16 people ran the mile in under 4 minutes. Pretty interesting. So I'm kind of going back and forth between these guys. And then Larry said, here's a good example. Your own buddy Tank, who was 5'7", 260 pounds, and was the nose guard on my high school football team. And let's just say he earned the nickname Tank. Well, what bothered Tank, in his own words, is that for 10 years he sat on a bar stool in Arizona, talking and wishing about living overseas and teaching English. But he couldn't do it. He couldn't make it happen. The other thing that bothered him is that he was a slob. So Larry said, very simple, you don't need to go into a cave and meditate in Sanskrit for 24 hours a day till your lungs believe that I am tidy. Forget all that visualization stuff. Do something. Just act. Find one thing. Every day, spend 2 minutes and make your bed for 1 year. Well, Tank was up to the challenge, and he did it, and he was telling me this story 3 years ago in his apartment in Budapest, where he teaches English. Incidentally, 260-pound Tank is now 175 pounds and is in LA for Bikram yoga teacher training. So what really helped him shift was evidence. And Wayne Dyer has a great quote. He says, the secret, it's not about what we think about, it's about what we are. And I think that, to me, is the million-dollar question. How do we become that? Do we just say it over and over? Do we visualize? Do we think about it? Well, we really need evidence. So Tank, because he saw that bed made every day, he started thinking, I am neat, I am disciplined, and his life started to change. So there we go. Very simple. It's as easy as evidence. Well, now Harry comes back to me and says, if that's the case, what about Barbara? Barbara's 24 years old, beautiful skin, beautiful body, makes over $1 million a year as a model, great-looking boyfriend, but she's right now doing a 21-day fast. She just had Botox. She's had her second nose job. She has all the evidence in the world that supports that she's beautiful, but she doesn't believe it. How do you explain that? Well, I really couldn't explain it. Other than that, probably 10% of what we experience is conscious, and 90% is subconscious. And even with all this evidence, things didn't change. So now this debate is kind of back and forth. Is it our mind or is it our actions? Is it beliefs? I wasn't sure. So I thought about my own path as an author. And I graduated from business school, decided to write a book on personal finance, had no experience as a writer, didn't even take an honors English class, but I thought, all right, I can do this. I had a belief system that I can make it happen. I'll defy the odds and do it. And my actions were solid. I worked really hard. I wrote the book every day. I interviewed people. I did research. And I wrote this book, and I went to New York and pitched it with beliefs and actions all aligned, and nobody was interested. But that didn't stop me, because I believed, and I said, all right, I'm going to self-publish this book. Hired a guy named Frank, who was an editor, to work with me, printed 3,000 copies, and you know what happened, right? My beliefs were there, my actions were there. Had to work, right? Well, I think 2,993 are still sitting in a warehouse somewhere. And of the 7 that I sold, 5 of those have the same last name as me. But a funny thing happened. People were less interested in reading my book and more interested in learning how they could write one. So all of a sudden, I became the most popular unpaid book consultant at the time. And Frank, who had worked in publishing, decided to start a literary agency. On a lark, called me and said, "You want to do it with me?" I figured, why not? We each invested $200, printed some business cards, some letterhead, and we hung our shingle. And we go to New York, and for a week, we had these meetings, and for a week, we're eating gourmet lunches with editors from Random House. Actually, Random House was the last day. HarperCollins, Penguin, Doubleday. And I didn't really understand it. So after the fourth day, I said, "Frank, I don't get it. We're just two idiots working out of our apartments. We don't even have any clients, and these editors are buying us lunch." And he said, "That's because editors are dying for good material." "What do you mean? Everyone wants to write a book. Everyone's pitching them their ideas. What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, that's the slush pile. It belongs in the slush pile. But editors want the good stuff, and to get it, they need agents, and that's why they're taking us out to lunch." Well, if he told me that, I wouldn't have believed it, but after 4 days of my belt getting tighter and my wallet staying the same size, it made sense. So the next day, our last day in New York, we had lunch with an editor from Random House, and now this mind shift was publishers are dying for good material. So I said to him, "Hey, I have an idea for a book. How about using poker skills in business?" He goes, "I love it." Well, of course. I mean, he's dying for good material. Send me a proposal. So I sent him the proposal. 2 months later, 29-year-old guy with no skills as a writer got a book deal with Random House. And Harry said, "There you go. Your mind shifted and everything fell into place." Larry said, "Not so fast, because you wrote that first book. You created this partnership. You did the work. You started the agency. You went to New York. You took the meetings. You wrote the proposal. You wrote the book. You got a column in Car Player magazine. It wasn't just your mind. It was your actions." So at this point, I'm thinking, okay, it's maybe some combination of both. And while my career as a literary agent took off, my career as an author wasn't going so well. And back to what I said, what I really wanted to do was be a teacher, be a speaker, be an author, and I wasn't doing that. I was shrinking. I was hiding and kind of behind helping others and not doing my own thing. So as it was, I decided to take a 2-month trip and go to India. And along the way, I stopped on the island of Koh Samui in Thailand and ended up at a detox health spa and did a 12-day fast. Colonics, gurus, the whole works. And not only did I start losing weight and looking better and feeling better, but I met a guy named Mark who said, "I can change your beliefs. I do something called EFT, Emotional Freedom Technique, where you actually tap on your body and you hit different meridian points. And the idea, it's almost like you're pounding the new belief systems into your system." And I thought, all right, I'll give it a shot. And many of us have these significant events in our childhood or growing up or anywhere that influence us that we might not even know about. And so Mark and I went back and we discovered 3 significant childhood events. The first was 5th grade, and if we sang the Star Spangled Banner in Mrs. Ferguson's class, we would get a Coke. So I stood up there bold and proud and I belted out the Star Spangled Banner, and the whole class laughed at me. You guys it's kind of sad, right? So I stormed out of the room crying, spent the day in the guidance counselor's office. It was really traumatic for me. Even so, despite my musical inabilities, I still was a confident kid, and I remember very vividly in 6th grade saying to my friend on the softball field, I said, "I think I can do whatever I want." I can't remember what he said, but I remember his body language sort of said, "No." Not that he doubted that, but just that level of confidence and I can do, I just understood that I wasn't going to be liked if I did that. And when you're in 6th grade and you want to be liked and want to be popular, that sort of can-do attitude wasn't going to fly. So I started shrinking a little bit. Then in 8th grade, the first basketball game of the season, and back then, I was actually the best player on the team. We can cue up Bruce Springsteen Glory Days real quick. But I was a good player. I wasn't a ball hog, but I was a good shooter. In the first game of the season, I took the first 5 shots, and I missed them all. Coach calls timeout, and I remember Coach Gahida just ripping me apart. He says, "This isn't the Dinkin show." And so I thought, all right, I can't step out. So Mark and I went through this, and we played these mental movies while I tapped on my body, and we started reprogramming my software. Really cool stuff. And as we started talking through this, we realized that, why should these events influence things? And he even said, this is the Dinkin show. And I tapped it in, and anyway, that was sort of with me. And then, so the thing about these belief systems is we actually have to believe them. So when we look at The Secret and the Law of Attraction, or Think and Grow Rich, or the power of positive thinking, we can say, I want to be debt-free, or even better, you want to say, I want to be abundant, or I believe I can do it. But you have to believe it. And so, again, for Tank, he wouldn't have believed it if he said it, but by doing it, he started to believe it. So then, more and more sort of things came into my life, and I read a book called The Four Agreements, and it said, don't take things personally. Everything that people say or do has something to do with them and not you. Well, we heard that in kindergarten, but I'm like, that makes sense. I believe that. So if I put myself out there, whether it's singing or speaking, and people laugh at me or don't like me, that's them. I believe that. And then I heard this quote from Marianne Williamson, which I'm sure many of you have heard. Nelson Mandela made famous. I won't read all of it, but it said, your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking. That just kind of blew me away, that word. Shrinking so that others won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. Well, I totally believe that. My shrinking wasn't serving anybody. So I started believing these things. Well, meanwhile, when I was at this detox health spa, I met this beautiful woman, a yoga teacher, who I liked, didn't quite have the confidence to pursue it. And as it was, she was having a party, and she sent out an invite saying, bring one of your gifts. So bring a recipe, make some food, bring some poetry, bring a musical instrument. And I thought, all right, now's the time. Now keep in mind, I'd been playing guitar for 12 years. I like to sing, but I still didn't have the confidence in singing in front of people. But I've been writing a song inspired by my time there to the tune of Billy Joel's We Didn't Start the Fire, only it was called We Didn't Clog the Colon. This is true. But I changed all the words to my friends and people I met there, and I've been playing it every day. Larry's like, you got to practice, you got to work. And my belief systems of, well, if people don't like it, so what? It's them. And another thing I learned is, and I believed, is I actually sing better when I sing with confidence and belt it out. So I thought, all right, I got to do this. So go to the party, bring my guitar. Mark was there. He gives me a little tap, kind of mouse. This is the Dinkin show. I take a breath. There's about 25 people there, and I just go for it. And everybody loved it. I mean, it couldn't have been better received. I felt good. I had that to build on. And then I got to know this yoga teacher better, and of all the things she could have said to me, she told me, that night, I fell in love with your voice. So pretty amazing affirmation. So now I'm like, all right, this is kind of working here, Putting the right belief systems and the right actions, things can happen. But I had some other challenges. I mentioned my weight. And, I'd been close to 300 pounds, and I started, learning a lot about this. I went to nutrition school, I started studying. And I believed that, and we all just think, well, just work harder. Larry's like, you want to lose weight? Exercise more, eat better. But I thought, all right, that wasn't always working because I had pretty good work habits. But I also learned that diets don't work, which made sense to me. Because when we go on a diet, we tell our body that we're starving, we tend to hold on. I also believed that by restricting myself, I would crave things more. So I put these belief systems, all right, I'm not going to diet, and I'm not going to have any restrictions. I'm going to give my body what it needs every day. So I'm going to have my green smoothie, which Felicia has experienced, my protein shake, my salad, and then do what I want. And of course, I've got to work. So I had these belief systems. I worked, did my yoga, went to the gym, worked out. And today is I officially have lost 100 pounds. I weigh 187 pounds. Thank you. So, what I really want you to think about, I don't know if I've answered the question of, well, first of all, why do we want to shift our minds? I think we want to shift our minds because we want to shift our lives and our actions. And to me, I always thought of it as a debate. Is it Larry who says, do more, work more, or is it Harry who says, just think better thoughts? And what I've come up with is, really we got to start with the thoughts. And we have this collective mind shift so remember what Harry said about Roger Bannister. When you believe something can happen, you put it into place. And you don't necessarily have to do EFT. Just find beliefs that work for you. You have to believe them, and then you have to practice them and believe them more. So, the answer to the question, or the answer to the debate, really isn't much of a debate. It's really more of a marriage, kind of a marriage between Harry and Larry, which sounds like a bad sitcom. But I want you to walk away with that. Figure out why you want to shift your mind, what are the outcomes that you desire, Then find the belief systems that support that, take the action every day, and your mind will shift and your life will shift. Thank you.